Hello team, welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today. It is a 1v1 between God of Cream and Blue and Lie Flat in red. Red clearly going to pick somewhere in the south. God of Cream's got the central part of the map kind of locked down in this picking phase. We can see that God of Cream is actually going on the right hand side and picking just 4 territories to start off with, which to me indicates either there's going to be a lot of production that's put down with all this extra money that's saved by not having those 2 territories, or potentially, and it's exactly what we see, a town in addition to this. So 3 factories building tanks. God of Cream's got the first refinery on the way. Lie Flat spawns here, 2 towns, 3 industry, rather 4 industry and a factory. So way more economy for red to start this game. And we'll expect and we'll see that red is making more money very shortly here once this set. I mean, both the towns are started up right now, so we probably can just look at a 290 income for blue and 456 for red, really showing how much more money you make if you go for pre-built economies. But that being said, the trade-off is that blue is going to have a lot of tanks here. 3 are already on the way. 3 is going to turn into 6. 6 is going to turn into 9. I can't count past 10. So it's going to be some number of tanks that over time come into these factories, because I suspect that blue is probably not going to change from building tanks off of this start. Great barracks in the north for God of Cream with the building commandos to start capping some of the central map location. And look at me. Color me entirely wrong, because it's 3 SAMs after the first 3 tanks, which will be very nice in a defensive posture if Lie Flat were to have gone airport. Clearly God of Cream doesn't necessarily know that Lie Flat is here, and same thing, red does not see that blue is at this location quite yet. But luckily, unluckily, or however we want to paint it, for blue, there is no airport from Lie Flat at this point. God of Cream is actually going to be the first one to put down an airport. These 3 SAMs, super great, super defensive. Would be able to deal with any early helicopters or planes in general that red would be able to throw at this. Lie Flat at this point will see that these tanks come into vision, can see this refinery in the fog of war, and also can see this town. And a good thing that red's got going is that this entire base is in the mountain range, and these 2 towns are on the other side of it, so these 3 blue tanks would have to traverse this part of the mountain and move very slowly through it before they could get at any of this. And another thing is that tanks have horrible vision, so if they were to move into this mountain range to try to start sniping these buildings, they wouldn't necessarily see these things until they were sitting right on top of them, really. The buildings get that added stealth bonus in the mountains. And Lie Flat's going to send 3 infantry in that will get a very good scout. This is actually red's vision. Sees the factory still going town, or still going for tanks. And sees the handful of SAMs here. Won't be able to actually destroy that town at all. There is the entrenched infantry would be able to deal with it by themselves. And first command was coming out of this north barracks for God of Cream, who's got helicopters on the way out of this airport. Lie Flat's going to make it to this part of the map first. But something that might come into play is that these red infantry are going to cap these mountain and forest territories much more slowly than these blue infantry are going to cap all of this like flat open territory, because they don't get that movement speed nerf. We can check the income, 558 for Lie Flat, who still has a lot of money, and 375 total capital income for God of Cream. More SAMs on the way for blue. These 3 tanks are doing a great job just to pick off a few infantry without committing too heavily into the forest. And now at this point, these 3 tanks, if they... Kind of unfortunately, I mean, it's going to do the same thing when they take the roundabout way to do this. They're going to be able to cut off this red forest from going too far to the west. which will hamper Red's ability to expand and get more money, which this game is mostly about. Second factory now for lie flat, continuing to go for artillery pieces. At some point we'll need to get some sort of SAMs to deal with these helicopters. The second one is being built right now. Still a mix of SAM tank out of blue, using the tanks to cap. And these three will be able to take on a decent amount of infantry here, or at least waste the time of Red's infantry. Since they have to do this, they'll run off, try to chase down the tanks. They can't be capping right now when they're doing this. And more barracks for lie flat. Probably pushing a lot of infantry to the left-hand side of the map. So it's really just tank SAMs and helicopters about to show up for blue against artillery pieces and infantry for red. Who still has an economic lead. We can check right now. 455 now for blue. 568 for red. Who still has a lot of standing money. I'm not sure what lie flat's plan with all this money is. There could be a port that's being built. Oh, so it's a rocket. Okay, so red is going for a rocket. That's the launch pad in the mountains here. Rocket range would definitely be able to hit this blue base. And great value that God of Cream is getting with these tanks. Now starting to fully retreat these things so that they don't lose any of these tanks. This one's on fire. This other one's on fire a little bit. Getting that max value from those units. Still just one refinery for blue. There's a number of tanks out on the field. If we actually go to blue's vision, we can see that with all the tanks moving, the energy usage is pretty high. There's no real good second refinery location except for this refinery that's currently under territory that is controlled by lie flat. Second town now for God of Cream, which will, so they'll catch up a lot on the econ side of things once this second town is done. But good thing for red, they've now got through this little choke. An aesthetic dig in the mountains with those infantry to kind of scout. Forward observation post and such. And it's really just 4 barracks. Continue to pump units to the left for red. Good amount of commandos for God of Cream in the north. Then 3 helicopters are done, a 4th one is on the way, and now a transition to artillery out of the blue factories. It's actually a second rocket from lie flat. So these 2 rockets could probably destroy, certainly at least this refinery and these 3 factories. Or the town. It's going to take a while for these launch pads to build. They're also being built in the mountains, so there's a 50% build time penalty to buildings that are built in the mountain. They get an extra stealth bonus when this happens. But launch pads are already stealthed by default. On stream, we got some comments in chat a while ago from someone named Orbnet. And they mentioned to not build launch pads in the mountains. I'm letting you in on this secret. This is that Insider Pro line war knowledge. To in general build the launch pads just in the open field so that they build quicker. They already have that stealth bonus as a building. But of course, you know, it's all situational and we're in a game of line war. You can do whatever the heck you want. Helicopters, all 4 of them, are now going off to the left-hand side. This will be really good for God of Cream because there's no anti-air over here for lie flat. These infantry are probably too far gone and will just continue capping to the west. But blue might be able to seal off this choke on red and make it difficult for lie flat to reinforce anything off to the west. 4 helicopters are going to do great here. There's now a number of SAMs sitting between these rockets or like, you know, these rockets that are about to exist for red and blue's base. God of Cream obviously has no idea that these launch pads are being built. They're stealth. There hasn't been a scout of Lie Flat's base yet. And the helicopters will get tremendous value. First rocket is on the launch pad for Lie Flat. And there's not quite enough money to make the second rocket without cutting production for red. And we can check the ecos. 608 for red, 720 for blue. God of Cream now starting to get that energy problem. Third town in the north, this is looking very good for blue, I think. Another barracks in the top right. And here comes the second refinery, which God of Cream should be able to defend. I'd feel off of 3 barracks like this, enough factory units, how long it would take for red to actually like push to this. I think that God of Cream would probably be able to mount a defense in time. And it's probably an unattractive thing for Lie Flat to actually leave this position at this point, especially because there's a rocket on the way. And one of the priorities is probably to defend that rocket. Infantry get one of the helicopters. That's actually a pretty big deal for Lie Flat. In red. Helicopters don't let up though. They're going in for another one. Barracks on the left-hand side for Lie Flat to help out with that econ. Continue capping to the west. Relatively passive game when it really comes down to it. In a power plant with a depot, 20 energy is required to launch a rocket. So this is, I assume, Lie Flat's saving up to also run some of these interceptors. Maybe it's an interceptor scout. Red will send out the interceptor, figure out exactly where all the buildings are and where to put this rocket. Potentially what we're going to see. Or these interceptors can be used on the left-hand side to deal with these helicopters. That continue to be... I mean, I guess they're really just attacking this one defensive line over and over, but... probably still good value that these blue helicopters are getting, even after losing one of those to the infantry. Good amount of tanks that God of Cream has built up here. And still helicopters for blue out of that airport. Fourth town now for God of Cream, who also has a barracks in the top left. Rather, I guess, like top middle of this map, but it's moving units to the left-hand side, and we actually go big picture. This is how far both players have got. So there's a lot of land still on the left-hand side of the map that's up for grabs. It's a good amount of artillery under the helicopter cover. And it looks like God of Cream is kind of going towards this choke point. It's a very natural spot in the map for God of Cream to go to really cut off the main base of Lie Flat from the rest of the development that Red is going for, including some industry over here. Commandos are about to get into a little bit of a fight with some Red infantry, and will likely be able to win that fight with a little bit of micro. And here come the tanks, looking for some industry, scouting through this. First rocket is now done. I assume this was a scout from Lie Flat. This is Red's vision at the moment. Rocket's certainly in range of all this, or at least the refinery. But there's a good amount of SAM, so there's the possibility that God of Cream could just shoot down a rocket if it was launched at their base right now. Sam's moving off to the left. Will be able to cover these helicopters if these interceptors decide to go out and try to deal with them. And tanks are just going to push through this infantry and weave their way through the mountains here. Never mind, they're going to back up. Dot command, the move command from God of Cream to get those out of there. The second rocket is now on the stand for Lie Flat. And third interceptor nearly done. And eco-wise, 760 for red, 935 for blue. Good run by from these two red tanks. The helicopters will likely be able to defend this, with 3 tanks showing up. So these 3 blue tanks should be able to destroy these 2 red tanks before the red tanks can take out this town. Can tank out this town. There was a lively debate in Twitch chat the other day, twitch.tv/SodaQuackers, self-plug, where we were talking about how to deal with tanks. I always lose the tanks. How chat, felt about tanks, how to deal with tanks, and the consensus generally was the only way to deal with tanks is to have your own tanks. With caveats, of course. Helicopters do a decent job, but the tanks are just so quick that one is going to go down, but this other one's going to get out of here. Helicopter can't really chase this unit down quick enough. And requires some more micro out of God of Cream to get up here. One tank could destroy this town if it's left on that long enough. And at this point, we would assume that Red's plan is to get 2 rockets. And then launch them both pretty quick. Interesting strat. It's going to be 4 mini tanks for blue taking on a real tank for red. Sams are going to do alright in this situation. A 5th one joins in. And that's the firecrackers for you. 1 Sam for 1 tank. Great play from God of Cream. Actually gets up there and defends that town. It's 4 power plants now to the left, which may indicate that God of Cream is a little bit worried about this forward refinery and wants to have a backup. And by building these energy producing structures. Blue's got a good amount of the way to the left hand side if we go, top down picture. Red has got just as far west. But there's a lot of commandos for blue, and once God of Cream caps all this, all these units get to come back down south. And this is the big deal, is that God of Cream has very successfully controlled this choke now. There's plenty of SAMs to be able to protect these artillery pieces. It's going to be 2 lines worth of artillery pieces here in a good arc. So, I mean, red really can't push through this anymore. It'd just be too difficult, too costly. And here comes the rocket. As we see God of Cream building a barracks on the left-hand side after splitting red's units in 2. Sams will get some shots off, but this rocket will very likely land. And it does. Destroys a refinery and 2 factories. I believe this 3rd factory will be okay, and it is. So I think at this point, if there's a time to push, it probably is now. And that's exactly what Lie Flat's going to do, and drop some of these artillery pieces out of their entrenchments, which may open up God of Cream to push with these units. And that's exactly what we see. Which makes a lot of sense if God of Cream feels that red is going to go for an all-out frontal assault here to open up that flank. Blue is rebuilding some of these factories. We got to check the incomes. 870 for red, 1206 for blue. Certainly a huge advantage for God of Cream at this point, but a good push from red. The problem is that there's no air support for these red units, so these helicopters over time are going to get great value. There's enough defense at home for Lie Flat that this army on the left-hand side probably shouldn't be too much trouble, especially if all these units get dug in time. The real problem for red is what's going on the rest of the map. A very eclectic mix of commandos, helicopters, and tanks here. Commandos are great for blue because they give great vision, even if these units are, like these buildings are all in the mountains. Red gets this refinery. So these 4 power plants in the north can kind of, compensate a little bit for that. It's still a little bit of a sketchy situation, for God of Cream on the energy front because of all the tanks and helicopters that are flying around. But blue is going to take out this barracks and slowly over time just establish dominance on the left-hand side of the map. And then all that's left is for God of Cream to try to push into this very heavily fortified peninsula against the player that has 2 rockets. So I mean, Lie Flat can probably fend off quite a few waves of attacks here. It'll just be that their eco dries up over time. Jeez, perfect timing. No SAMs in the north, so you can see how effective these interceptors are against these helicopters. Actually, one of the interceptors destroyed a blue SAM here, which we don't often see. Interceptors have, you know, pretty negligible damage that they do to ground units. Unless it's a helicopter, then they just shoot a missile at it. And it's 4 barracks on the left-hand side now for God of Cream against no barracks for red. Unfortunately, Lie Flat hasn't had the opportunity to put down a barracks over there. Not that it would matter over time. I think that blue just has enough units down here. Yeah, I mean, this is God of Cream's vision. Whoops. This is now actually God of Cream's vision. You can see that these territories are changing, so it kind of gives an idea of where red would be. Now red puts down 3 barracks, which is, I think, the right call to try to fight it out. 4 infantry nearly get an airport. That's an interesting spot for red. Sitting on 2 rockets. I think it could go either way, where to push. Okay, so that's going right back at God of Cream's main base. Those 4 infantry actually do get the airport. Holy cow, that must have came down right to the wire. And those 4 infantry for red kind of bait all these blue units over here that we're trying to defend. Still probably not a super cost-effective rocket. But that's not even why you use a rocket. You use a rocket because it looks cool, and it's a fun building to build. Good defensive unit. I mean, the rocket probably could go here, in fact, in an attempt for red to break out. And the only reason I'm so involved in what red is going to do is because of the eco situation. It's 1376 for blue and 848 for red at this point. So God of Cream nearly doubling the economy. A little bit of a light push from red out of the main base. 4 artillery pieces and an infantry would be able to destroy this town over time after shelling their way through the infantry that are entrenched. Seven barracks now for God of Cream there, who has got into this forest and likely seeing these barracks at this point. And that is true. 3 barracks are exposed. There's enough blue units here that these red barracks are in a lot of trouble. Not really enough infantry for red to be able to mount in defense. And a dock now. Going missile boats for God of Cream. Lie Flat can actually see this. Both? No, I guess it's just 1 rocket. Rocket launches, so the interceptors are now out of gas. Just being powered by this one power plant. And pretty good. This is maybe gonna get the town. Certainly destroys all those blue units. It does destroy the town as well. Lie Flat might be able to destroy this town. There's only 2 infantry that are left in these defensive positions. And I suppose maybe if red could get the greatest push of all time to the north, but there's so much eco here, and there's 4 tanks already. 4 tanks can deal with 4 artillery pieces. And God of Cream is just rebuilding the town. This barracks is in trouble. Infantry probably hoping that it doesn't pop out of that barracks to immediately be in the greatest firefight of their life. Bombers now from Lie Flat, who will need to build an airstrip at some point. But it's tough because everything's just powered by this one power plant. There is a depot, but that just means that Lie Flat has to wait for that depot to fill up in order to use all the gas units that they have. Good amount of artillery will get the town. Decent push here. There'll be success until they run into these tanks. 4 commandos and 4 artillery pieces against 4 tanks and an artillery piece. I think the tanks would win that fight as long as they can continue moving and don't run out of energy. And very slowly, Lie Flat is now just in the bottom left corner. All these blue units are going to cap all this territory back. And here comes another refinery for God of Cream, who does lose this town. Has 1 missile boat. The more missile boats, the better. They can really shut down these interceptors and bombers. Rather, 1 bomber. And God of Cream can't go around the bottom, so can't access this town or any of these coastal buildings by using this dock. But can probably just park close enough to the airport to get a bunch of damage when the planes go out and then when they return home. So the tanks did clear out all the artillery pieces. Good numbers here from Lie Flat, who can probably push up to this part of the map. And then we'll encounter pretty fierce resistance with all these tanks and now some artillery pieces. It's 3 factories up in the north for God of Cream. 2 on the left-hand side there are going tanks. Helicopters have been great, I think, down here for God of Cream against all these red infantry. Here comes the rocket. It's going to the left. Likely to this choke. Great reaction from God of Cream if that was the line to try to move away. Rocket just launches so close though that it's not really like blue has any chance to get out of there. And we will likely see a push to the left now from Lie Flat, who's made good gains here through this open field. 810 income for red, 1591 for blue. Lie Flat's got another rocket, which could be used against these barracks. Potentially. I mean, this red army is now out of range of this rocket. We don't have techs in the game yet that will allow you to transport a rocket. I say yet, I don't know if that's a plan. I feel like someone mentioned that once, so now I just will say it as if it's a real thing that's being considered. But I have no idea. Defensive line for God of Cream, that's okay. God of Cream can afford to do this since they're so ahead on the economy. And actually building a rocket themselves in this mountain range, very clearly within range of all of Lie Flat's stuff. And red can't see this rocket. I suppose in a situation like this, it works out to build the rocket in the mountain range. Because if it was in the open field, maybe this many units for red could actually scout this and see that. It wouldn't be a huge deal, I think, either way, just because it'd be hard for red to actually destroy this rocket. There's some artillery pieces, but it's not like it's an enormous army for red, and there's a lot of barracks. And some artillery pieces that could even get in the mix to defend it. And a lot of infantry from the south now showing up to reinforce. Go top down, there's just a few pockets of red units. When I say a few pockets, it's just 2 single infantry on the left hand side. There's no more infantry in this part of the map for red. Red wisely decides to go around this. This is way too much defensive units for that many artillery pieces to push through. And what is this, the 4th rocket of the game? By this point you can see the plan. God of Cream is just building four docks to circle Lie Flat's main base. Okay, so red still can't see this rocket. It's heavily damaged, but it's still 2/3 of the way done. Destroys like 2 or 3 barracks. Race against time. Red doesn't know it yet, but a race against time to deal with this launch pad. But this is a lot of factory units that God of Cream is moving into to help defend this. And blue now has the energy security with this refinery. Okay, so here comes the top of the rocket. You can barely tell. It looks great. Great condition. As long as it flies and explodes, God of Cream does not care. Lie Flat also has a rocket again, with the other one on the stand. Great play here. It's nice for red to pick this up, but also it kind of saves God of Cream some income, because I don't think God of Cream necessarily wants more than just like 1 dot of missile boats. Another rocket now for God of Cream. Loses a town in the north, but if we check the overall picture, 1596 income for blue, 830 for red. This attack is still working. Red's got enough infantry to body block for these artillery pieces, which allows these artillery pieces to be super effective when they're not directly fighting the infantry that's on top of them. And pretty much anyone's guess where this rocket goes from God of Cream. You could even use it to the north to deal with this army, but likely going to see it launched at Lie Flat's main base. 3 infantry get past this blue army in the north, but God of Cream will reclaim all this territory in the center of the map. And we can see that there's no more red territories on the left-hand side. Second rocket is on the stand now for blue. Second rocket is nearly completed for red. And this is a lot of artillery tank. Artillery piece gets one of those missile boats. It's always funny to see this artillery piece just on like the most hilarious downward slanted angle into the water, trick-shotting the heck out of that boat. Still don't see this rocket, and I can't wait for this. Where is this going? Will it even get launched before the game's over? There's too many blue units for red. This is way too many blue units for red. This is what it looks like coming out of the forest. So Lie Flat can't actually see these 2 barracks in there, but can definitely see all these units. So there's now 3 completed rockets on the field, all within range of each other, but none of them can see the others. And here we go. Yeah, God of Cream is going to push back to that choke. Let's see how much damage this rocket does. Will this other rocket take off in time? Is that how that works? Or does that get damaged? It must get damaged. Okay, so this rocket will get out. That first one that launched does not. And here we go. Destroy some artillery pieces. And also an infantry. A little bit of friendly fire there. This is what we're looking at what is going to be the end of the game. God of Cream is going to surround this army in this choke with artillery pieces, some tanks in reserve that could be used. And Blue is starting to eco, building more of this economy. And the name of the game at this point for Blue would just to be continue launching rockets at this thing. Checking the eco again, 918 for red, 1620 for blue. That's interesting. I guess that's a tell, like when the artillery pieces stop firing and the boat hasn't sank yet. And if they start moving, it just means that they've already killed the boat. I don't know, I'm just noticing that for the first time. Not that it would ever be useful. When I'm laddering or something, I go, holy cow, I must have killed that boat. We just can't see it yet. There's no more commentary besides that. That's it. Here we go, another rocket. Definitely enough missile boats to deal with whatever could come off this airport for red. And I wonder if God of Green can actually see where this launch pad is. Not quite. Just kind of has a guess. That time it does destroy the launch pad though. And there we go. Good game. Well played. I don't think we've seen that many rockets in a 1v1 before in this series of Line War casts. Graphs, that's why we're here again. Huge income advantage. Is what it is. Great game. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Shouts out to God of Cream who posted this in the match replays channel in the Discord. If you want to learn more about the game, chat with folks, find games in the Looking for Games channel. Join the Discord. And as mentioned before, I stream on Twitch if you'd like to check out, like watching the game, come hang out, talk about Line War, whatever you want to do. Twitch.tv/SodaQuackers. Hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is. We'll see you around. Bye-bye.